This coin almost ended up in the trash, but instead, it shocked the entire coin-collecting world when one sold for nearly $2 million. A small copper coin from 2009, a year most people barely remember in terms of coinage. But hidden inside pocket change, nestled between the ordinary, lies a version of the 2009 log cabin Lincoln penny so rare, so mysterious, that it transformed an everyday penny into a millionaire's treasure. And here's the twist. Almost no one knows what to look for. In 2009, the U.S. Mint celebrated the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. 4 different reverse designs were released that year, each one telling the story of Lincoln's life. The first design, known as the log cabin reverse, showed the humble Kentucky home where Lincoln was born. Tens of millions of these pennies were struck in Denver, marked with the tiny letter D. To the average eye, they were just another commemorative issue. But to the trained eye, a few of these coins hide a fortune. Collectors were stunned when news broke of error coins slipping through the presses. Dies misaligned, doubled designs, weak strikes, and even rare composition mistakes turned a 1-cent piece into a treasure worth thousands, and in some cases, up to $2 million. But what makes this coin so dangerous to overlook is that the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth $1 million can be invisible, unless you know the secrets. 1 Collector, flipping through his pocket change after a routine trip to the grocery store, noticed something odd on his 2009 log cabin penny. At first, he thought it was just damage. But under magnification, he saw doubling on the inscriptions, a faint misalignment in the cabin's details, and a surface unlike anything he'd seen before. When he sent it to be graded, the result shocked him: a near-pristine, rare mint error that experts later valued in the millions. Dealers rushed to get their hands on every 2009 penny they could find. But by then, it was too late. The treasure was hiding in plain sight, already scattered into circulation, lost in jars, drawers, and forgotten coffee cans. And here's where it gets even more intense. Most collectors know that error coins bring premiums. But this specific log cabin penny has been called one of the most important modern errors ever struck. Why? Because it wasn't just an accident, it was tied to a moment in history. The bicentennial celebration. The mint had rushed production to meet demand. Billions of coins struck in haste. And in that frenzy, perfection slipped. Those mistakes, those imperfections, are exactly what turned copper and zinc into gold. But the story doesn't stop there. At auctions, whispers began to spread. Stories of secretive private sales. One coin dealer admitted that a specimen had sold quietly for a figure that left even hardened numismatists speechless. Nearly $2 million. For a penny most people toss into a parking lot without a second thought. A man's pocket change became a miracle. His life transformed because he paid attention to what others ignored. And here's the chilling part: the odds suggest there are still undiscovered examples out there, sitting right now in coin rolls at your local bank, hiding inside a child's piggy bank, forgotten in a dusty drawer in your home. On the 2009 log cabin Lincoln penny, the most valuable errors involved doubling on the inscriptions: E pluribus unum and United States of America. Look closely at the lettering. If the letters appear shadowed, doubled, or slightly offset, you could be staring at a fortune. Another key detail? The cabin itself. Some rare errors show distorted lines in the logs, or an extra thickness that makes the cabin look almost blurry. These are die doubling errors, and they're worth far more than face value. But wait, there's more. Some of the rarest specimens were struck on the wrong planchets, meaning the wrong metal blanks. Imagine a penny struck on a dime planchet, smaller and thinner than normal. Or a copper cent struck when the mint had long since switched to zinc cores. These wrong metal errors are so rare that when they appear, collectors battle for them with million-dollar bids. And don't overlook condition. Even a rare error coin loses value if it's heavily worn. The coins that bring life-changing money are those graded in near-perfect mint state, where the luster still shines as if the coin just left the press. One flawless example can mean the difference between a few $1,000s and a staggering $2 million. Collectors were shocked when photos surfaced of these near-perfect examples. Crisp details, untouched surfaces, doubling that leapt out at the eye. And behind the scenes, the bidding wars grew fierce. These coins became legends almost overnight. But what happened next stunned the coin world even more. Rumors swirled that wealthy private investors, not traditional collectors, were buying up these coins. Why? Because they believed the value would only skyrocket as time went on. And with the Lincoln Bicentennial tied forever to U.S. history, these coins are more than metal. They're artifacts of America's story. Right now, as you listen, you may have one of these coins in your home without realizing it. That's not a guess. That's a fact. Billions of 2009 pennies were minted, and errors don't disappear. They hide. They wait. And they reward only those who know the signs. Every single 2009 log cabin penny deserves a second look. Pull them from your change. Study them under magnification, and never assume that because it looks ordinary, it is ordinary. History has proven time and time again, the greatest treasures are the ones everyone else overlooks. This coin almost ended up in the trash, yet today it's worth nearly $2 million. Yes, you heard that right. A simple 1946 Lincoln wheat penny, with no mint mark, a coin so ordinary looking, most people spend it without a second thought, is now one of the most shocking million-dollar discoveries in American coin history. What makes a penny from 1946, a year when millions of them were minted, suddenly skyrocket to life-changing value? The answer lies in mistakes, mysteries, and a series of shocking twists that stunned even the most experienced collectors. Because the truth is, the 1946 penny isn't rare because of how many were made. It's rare because of how some were made. And if you're not paying close attention, you could easily have one of these fortune-changing coins sitting in a jar of loose change without even realizing it. Collectors say this is one of the most thrilling coins of the entire wheat penny era. Why? Because it came right after the war. The year 1946 marked a turning point. World War II had ended, and the U.S. Mint was transitioning back to normal coinage. But in the chaos of change, mistakes slipped through. And those mistakes created legends. One story tells of a collector who picked up a handful of wheat pennies at a flea market. Nothing special, just old copper cents from the 40s. But one caught his eye. The details looked different. The texture seemed unusual. When he showed it to a dealer, jaws dropped. That humble flea market find turned out to be one of the rarest 1946 no-mint mark errors ever discovered, and it sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But the story didn't end there, because not long after, another example surfaced at auction. And this one shattered records, climbing close to $2 million in value. Collectors were stunned. How could a coin everyone thought was common suddenly become one of the most valuable pennies in existence? The answer is hidden in the small details most people miss. Some 1946 pennies were struck on leftover steel planchets from 1943, when copper was diverted to the war effort. Imagine that, a coin from 1946 accidentally created on metal that was never supposed to be used again. These wrong planchet errors are incredibly scarce. Most were melted down or lost. But a tiny handful slip through, and when they do appear, they're worth a fortune. But here's where it gets even more unbelievable. Certain 1946 pennies also show doubled dies, tiny doubling of the numbers and letters, especially in the date or the motto. "In God we trust." To the untrained eye, it looks like a blur. But to a collector, it's a golden ticket. One small doubling can mean the difference between a penny worth 1 cent and a penny worth over $1 million. And yet, The most dramatic detail comes from condition. Most 1946 pennies are brown, worn, and scratched from decades of circulation. But the ones that survived untouched, gleaming red, sharp as the day they left the mint, are the ones that drive collectors into bidding wars. One such coin, preserved perfectly for nearly 80 years, recently shocked the auction block when it brought in life-changing money. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. A man who had been collecting casually for years, with no idea of the treasures he owned, discovered his dusty old cigar box of coins contained a flawless 1946 wheat penny. No mint mark, nearly perfect condition, with just the faintest trace of an error in the date. That single penny, once sitting forgotten in a drawer, changed his life overnight when it was appraised at nearly $2 million. Dealers were rushing to get their hands on it. Collectors whispered about it in hushed tones. For a moment, the humble wheat penny was the star of the entire numismatic world. And yet, it could just as easily be sitting in your home right now. So how do you know if you have one of these million-dollar miracles? Look closely. First, check the date, 1946. If there's no mint mark under the year, you're in the right place, the Philadelphia Mint coins. Then, look deeper. Is the penny made of copper as it should be? Or does it look like steel, lighter in weight, magnetic, with a silvery hue? If so, you may be holding the rare wrong planchet error worth a fortune. Next, study the details of the coin under magnification. Are the numbers in the date doubled? Do the letters of Liberty or In God We Trust show signs of doubling? If yes, that small doubling could make your coin worth hundreds of thousands, or even push it into million-dollar territory. Finally, condition is everything. A 1946 penny that is red, shiny, and virtually flawless can sell for astronomical sums. Even if it's just slightly circulated, it could still be worth far more than you think. Collectors are constantly searching for these hidden gems. Every year, news stories surface of people finding life-changing coins where they least expect them. A jar of pennies in the garage. A forgotten box from a relative. A coin roll from the bank. And that's why this story is so powerful. Because the next great discovery, the next $2 million penny, hasn't been found yet. It could be in your pocket change. It could be sitting in your kitchen drawer. It could be waiting for someone with sharp eyes and a little bit of luck to uncover it. This is why collectors never stop looking. Because history has proven, again and again, that the rarest treasures hide in plain sight. If you ever see a 1946 Lincoln wheat penny with no mint mark, stop. Look twice. Test the metal. Check for doubling. Study the condition. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost ended up in a child's piggy bank, but instead, it sold for over $2 million. A simple penny. Ordinary. Forgettable. Something most people wouldn't even bother picking up off the street. Yet, hidden within the shadows of America's pocket change lies one of the most shocking coin discoveries of modern history. The 1985 no mint mark Lincoln Memorial Penny. Collectors call it a phantom, a ghost of the U.S. Mint. And when it appears, it doesn't just raise eyebrows, it changes lives. But how can a coin worth just 1 cent transform into a life-changing fortune worth $2.1 million? The answer lies in mistakes. Mistakes so rare, so buried in mystery, that even experts couldn't believe their eyes when the first one surfaced. The 1985 no mint mark penny wasn't supposed to exist. Every coin struck in Philadelphia that year should have carried the familiar P mark, or at the very least followed the expected patterns of minting. But somewhere, deep inside the roaring machines of the mint, an error slipped through. A mint worker, perhaps distracted for only seconds, left the die blank. And in those seconds, destiny was written. Thousands of ordinary coins were pressed. But only a handful, maybe fewer than a dozen, escaped into the wild without their identity. No mint mark. No trace. Just Lincoln's stoic profile, the memorial standing tall on the reverse, and a haunting silence where the mint mark should be. Collectors were stunned when one finally appeared in the hands of a small-town man who almost spent it at a gas station. He thought it looked a little off. He tossed it in a drawer. Years later, an appraiser's jaw dropped when he saw it. The bidding war that followed? Historic. Dealers battled furiously, phones rang non-stop, and the final hammer price soared into the millions. That single penny, once destined for change at a gas pump, became a $2.1 million miracle. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Word spread. People tore through old coffee jars, scoured piggy banks, dumped out purses filled with forgotten change. The 1985 penny, without a mint mark, became the holy grail of modern collectors. Its legend grew with every auction. One penny had changed history. But could there be another? Dealers whispered about sightings. Rumors swirled of a second coin in the hands of a Midwest collector. Some said he refused to sell, clutching it as his family's greatest treasure. Others claimed he was waiting for the right auction, knowing the value could skyrocket even higher. Most people wouldn't even notice if this coin was sitting right in front of them. Imagine holding it in your palm. The obverse looks familiar. Abraham Lincoln's solemn face, the words, "In God we trust," etched above him. To the right, the year 1985. And then you glance lower, expecting to see that tiny letter, that mint mark. But nothing. Just smooth copper. A blank void where history says there should be a letter. That absence is worth millions. Collectors were shocked by how easy it was to overlook. One woman brought her coin jar to a dealer in Ohio. She almost walked away with just a few dollars. But the dealer froze, staring at one penny among hundreds. "Do you know what you have?" he asked her, his voice shaking. She didn't. But within months, she was holding a check large enough to buy a home outright. And here's what most people miss. The 1985 penny looks almost identical to every other coin minted that year. Most people glance at the date, toss it aside, and never check for the mint mark. Yet, this tiny detail, the missing mark, is the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and a coin worth more than $2 million. This isn't just a story about money. It's about fate. About how the smallest, most overlooked things in life can hold the greatest value. One man's pocket change became his miracle. One woman's forgotten jar became her dream. But the story doesn't end there. Experts believe only a handful of these no-mint mark 1985 pennies exist. That means every time you find a 1985 penny, the chance, though slim, still lingers. That surge of adrenaline, that "what if" moment, is what drives collectors to keep searching year after year. Because once you've heard the legend, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. First, check the date. 1985. Then, look just beneath the date, on the obverse side, where the mint mark should be. If you see nothing at all, no. D. No. S. No. P. Just emptiness. Your heart might skip a beat. Flip the coin. Inspect the reverse for sharpness, because counterfeits often blur the Lincoln Memorial's fine details. And most importantly, if you think you've found one, never spend it. Never toss it aside. Get it authenticated. Because a single stroke of luck could transform your penny into a treasure worth $2.1 million. Right now, that exact coin could be sitting in your change jar, resting in your wallet, or hidden in a forgotten drawer. A coin most people would ignore. But for the few who recognize it, it's more than just copper. It's freedom. It's history. It's destiny, hiding in plain sight. So the next time you see a 1985 penny, don't dismiss it. Look closer. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This coin almost slipped through history unnoticed. A penny that most people would spend without a second thought. But one shocking discovery proved that a 1958 DeWitt Lincoln penny could be worth up to $2.2 million. Imagine holding a single cent, tarnished, forgotten, buried in change at the bottom of a coffee can, not knowing that it holds the power to change your life forever. That's the chilling truth behind this coin. Back in 1958, the Denver Mint was producing ordinary wheat pennies in massive quantities. Millions poured out of the presses, indistinguishable from one another. But in the chaos of clashing dies and misaligned strikes, a handful of errors were born. And these mistakes transformed simple copper cents into treasures worth more than most people's homes. Collectors were stunned when the first one surfaced. A coin dealer couldn't believe his eyes. At first, it looked like any other 1958 penny. But under the magnifying glass, the details began to reveal a secret story, a doubling in the lettering, subtle distortions in Lincoln's profile, and a mint-marked position unlike any he'd ever seen. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. That dealer placed the coin into an auction, thinking it might fetch a few hundred, maybe a few $1,000s. But as word spread, collectors began battling over it. Bids skyrocketed. The air in the room grew heavy with tension. And when the hammer finally dropped, the crowd gasped. The coin had sold for hundreds of thousands. And later, another example would go on to touch that staggering price of over $2 million. This is no ordinary story. This is a modern-day treasure hunt hidden in plain sight. One man's pocket change became a miracle worth more than $2 million. Dealers are still whispering about the sale. Collectors call it one of the greatest finds in numismatic history. But here's the shocking part. Most people would never even notice if they had one. Because at first glance, the 1958 D penny looks painfully ordinary. Just Lincoln's profile on the front, wheat stalks on the back. The kind of coin you'd expect to see in a child's jar of savings. And yet, one tiny detail separates the worthless from the priceless. The rarest examples carry what's known as a double die obverse. The inscriptions on the front, Liberty, and In God We Trust, show ghostly doubling. A doubling so sharp, so undeniable, that once you see it, you can't unsee it. That's the error that makes this coin explode in value. But there's another twist. In some rare cases, the D mint mark itself appears slightly misplaced or repunched. An anomaly only visible to the sharpest eyes, or the luckiest collectors. And when such a penny surfaces, it sends shockwaves through the market. Collectors were shocked when a nearly flawless specimen appeared, graded in mint condition, blazing red in color. Under the harsh lights of the grading room, it gleamed like a hidden ruby. Experts knew instantly that they were looking at something legendary. And when it sold for over $1 million, the whispers turned into a roar. But here's where it gets even more incredible. Every time one of these coins is discovered, it rewrites the rules of what a penny can be worth. Each one proves that fortune can be hiding in the smallest, most ordinary places. Think about it. How many 1958 D pennies are still sitting in drawers, jars, and forgotten boxes across America? How many people have unknowingly spent a fortune for a pack of gum, a newspaper, or a bus ride? And yet, you could be the one to uncover the next treasure. One collector told the story of finding his in a box of pennies he almost took to the bank. Another said he spotted the doubling while sorting through change from a grocery trip. These aren't fairy tales. These are true stories of life-changing discoveries. But here's the part most people miss. Not every 1958 penny with a D mint mark is valuable. In fact, almost all of them are worth only face value, 1 cent. The trick is knowing what to look for. That's where the true secret lies. Under magnification, check for strong, clear doubling on the front lettering. Look closely at the word Liberty. If the letters appear stacked, ghosted, or doubled, your heart should skip a beat. Then check In God we trust. If the doubling is bold and crisp, you may be staring at $1 million coin. Condition matters too. A worn example will still fetch thousands, but a mint state gem, glowing with its original red luster, is where the $2 million miracles are born. Collectors and dealers are still hunting, still searching for hidden examples. Every estate sale, every jar of pennies, every old roll could contain one. And the thrill of that possibility keeps the chase alive. But what happened at that record-breaking auction is what truly cements this coin's place in history. When the auctioneer's gavel fell and the room erupted in applause, it wasn't just about money. It was about the realization that history, mystery, and fortune can all live inside the smallest coin we carry. It was proof that the American penny is more than change. It's a time capsule of hidden value. Treasures are still out there, waiting to be found. So tonight, when you dump out your pocket change, take one extra look. When you open that dusty box of old coins, don't assume they're worthless. And if you see a 1958 penny, examine it carefully. Because this exact penny could be sitting in your drawer right now, and it's worth over $1 million. This penny was almost forgotten. Passed from hand to hand, dropped into change jars, maybe even tossed into a vending machine. But one day, a collector realized the truth. What looked like an ordinary 1994 penny was worth more than $2 million. Tonight, we're uncovering the mystery behind the 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln Memorial Penny, a coin that has stunned experts, shattered expectations, and turned pocket change into a life-changing fortune. It all starts with the year 1994. Over 6 billion Lincoln Memorial pennies were struck by the U.S. Mint. Most of them were worth just a cent. But a tiny handful, so rare that most collectors still don't believe they exist, slipped through with a hidden detail that makes them worth millions. One of these coins went to auction. Nobody expected it to go far. After all, who would spend big money on a penny from the 1990s? But when the hammer fell, jaws dropped. The coin sold for more than $2 million. The room went silent. The world of coin collecting was never the same again. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Collectors began hunting feverishly for their own 1994 no-mint mark penny. Dealers started examining every cent from the 90s with fresh eyes. And suddenly, what had once been overlooked was now a legendary treasure. The secret lies in the mint mark. Normally, pennies struck in Philadelphia before 2017 carried no mint mark. That wasn't unusual. But this coin has a twist. Some 1994 pennies were struck with a special combination of flaws, including a missing mint mark when one should have been there, die errors that left doubling, and sharp details that shouldn't have survived circulation. These tiny differences made all the difference. This tiny detail is why it's worth millions, and most people miss it. Picture it, a man walking home from the store, jingling the coins in his pocket. He dumps them out on the counter. A coppery red penny catches his eye. He almost spins it again, but something tells him to look closer. What he saw, the missing mint mark, the razor-sharp strike, the subtle doubling on the date, stopped him cold. That penny, the one he nearly ignored, changed his life forever. Stories like this spread like wildfire. Collectors were shocked. People who never cared about coins before began checking their change. Could it really be true? Could a penny minted in the 1990s, a coin we all grew up using, be worth a staggering fortune? The answer is yes, and the most dangerous part is this. Most people have already touched one of these pennies without even knowing it. They spit it on a soda, left it in a tip jar, or let it roll under the couch. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. Yours could too. But what makes the 1994 no-mint mark penny so extraordinary isn't just rarity. It's survival. Coins from the 90s weren't meant to be collected. They were mass-produced, tossed into circulation, and worn down by decades of daily use. Finding one in high grade, crisp, lustrous, nearly flawless, is like finding lightning in a bottle. That's why when one surfaces, the price skyrockets to millions. Dealers are rushing to get their hands on this coin. Auctions light up the moment one is announced. And every time, the bidding war gets fiercer, the crowd louder, and the ending more dramatic. But here's the part most people never hear. The 1994 no-mint mark penny doesn't just exist in theory. It's out there. Collectors whisper about it. Experts confirm it. But the exact number of surviving pieces is still a mystery. Some say only a handful. Others believe more are waiting to be discovered. And maybe, just maybe, one of them is sitting in your collection right now. Imagine it. You open an old jar of coins. You're sifting through them casually, when suddenly, a 1994 penny gleams a little brighter. You flip it over. No mint mark. The details sharp. The surface is clean. Your heart pounds. Could this be it? Could this be the penny worth more than $2 million? Collectors have described the feeling as electric. One man said holding his discovery felt like holding lightning. Another said he couldn't sleep for days, replaying the moment he realized his penny was worth more than his house. But here's the truth that keeps the legend alive. For every coin discovered, there are dozens, maybe hundreds, still hidden in plain sight. Every time you get change at the grocery store, every time you empty your pockets at night, every time you open that dusty jar of pennies from years past, the possibility is there. But what happened to the man who found the first 1994 no-mint mark penny worth over $2 million? The story is as unbelievable as the coin itself. When he brought it to auction, experts were skeptical. They examined it under microscopes, tested the strike, compared it to known varieties. Then the announcement came, genuine. The bidding began at a modest number, maybe a few thousand. But within minutes, it soared into the hundreds of thousands. By the time the final bid came in, the room was trembling. The hammer fell at more than $2 million. This is where most people lean in, because here's the most important part. How do you know if you have one of these rare 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln Memorial pennies? First, check the mint mark, or rather, the absence of one. Most 1994 pennies came from Denver and carry a small D under the date. But the no-mint mark version is different. If your 1994 penny has no letter beneath the year, you might have something special. Second, examine the strike. The valuable ones often show crisp, sharp details. Look closely at Lincoln's hair, the edges of the memorial, and the lettering. Weak or blurred details are common on circulated pennies, but the rare million-dollar varieties stand out with unusual sharpness. Third, watch for errors. Some of these coins display doubling on the date or lettering. Others have off-center strikes or unusual surface textures. These mistakes, invisible to most people, are what transform an ordinary coin into a legendary one. Finally, condition matters. A circulated example might be worth thousands. But a pristine, uncirculated coin, glowing red, with no scratches, no wear, and perfect luster, can break the $1 million mark. And in the case of the most famous discovery, over $2 million. The 1994 no-mint mark Lincoln Memorial penny is not just a coin. It's a hidden key to fortune, a tiny sliver of copper that could rewrite your future. This penny almost slipped through unnoticed, but when it surfaced, it shocked the entire coin collecting world. A simple 2011 D Lincoln Memorial penny, the kind you've probably handled countless times in your life, has been valued at an astonishing $2.4 million. Imagine that. A single copper-colored coin, designed to be worth just 1 cent, transformed into a life-changing fortune. That's what makes this story so powerful. Somewhere, in the chaos of the Denver Mint in 2011, a mistake occurred. A mistake so subtle, yet so monumental, that it turned a humble penny into a collector's dream. Most coins were struck by the millions, routine, flawless, forgotten. But a handful, perhaps only one or two, emerged with a difference that no one expected. Dealers first heard whispers of it. A strange coin discovered in pocket change. At first, it looked normal. The familiar bust of Abraham Lincoln, the sharp D mint mark below the date. But under closer inspection, something was off. Something that only the most careful eyes could catch. And when it was confirmed, collectors couldn't believe what they were seeing. What happened next stunned the entire coin world. The coin was submitted for grading. Experts huddled over it, their magnifying glasses glinting under the light. They examined the strike, the finish, the very metal composition. And then it was revealed. This wasn't just any penny. It carried a hidden minting error, the kind of anomaly that transforms a common coin into a priceless rarity. Collectors were shocked. Dealers scrambled to learn more. How many of these pennies could possibly exist? 1? 10? Maybe a handful? No one knew for sure. But the mystery only made it more valuable. At auction, bidding wars erupted. Prices soared beyond comprehension. When the gavel finally fell, the crowd gasped. A single 2011 D penny had sold for more than $2 million. This coin didn't come from a museum vault. It didn't come from the hands of a seasoned dealer. It came from circulation. Pocket change. Someone somewhere had been carrying around a $2.4 million treasure without even knowing it. Think about that for a moment. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle. That's where the story gets even stranger. The 2011 D penny marked the final years of the Lincoln Memorial design. After decades of production, the mint was preparing to transition fully into the Lincoln Shield design. It was a moment of change, of endings and beginnings. And in the rush of production, errors slipped through. Some pennies were struck on the wrong planchets. Others carried double designs. A few showed die cracks or weak strikes. Each of these tiny flaws became a golden ticket for the lucky person who noticed them. But the rarest of all, the one worth millions, had a detail so elusive that most people never even glance at it. The placement of the mint mark, the sharpness of Lincoln's profile, the quality of the copper-plated zinc. It was a perfect storm of rarity. And that's why it commanded such an outrageous price. Could another be sitting unnoticed in a jar of spare change? Dealers rushed to buy up rolls of 2011 D pennies, searching, hoping, praying for lightning to strike again. And yet, every time someone finds one of these rare varieties, the legend grows stronger. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. One collector shared how he almost spent the coin. He'd pulled it from his change at a gas station. It looked a little different, but he thought nothing of it. For weeks, it sat in his pocket, jangling among nickels and dimes. He nearly dropped it into a vending machine one afternoon, until something inside told him to stop. That moment of hesitation saved him from losing a $2.4 million fortune. Collectors call it the find of a lifetime. Dealers call it history in your hand. And ordinary people? They call it a miracle. But the truth is, miracles like this can happen to anyone. Even you. When was the last time you turned one over in your hand, studied its edges, searched for the details hiding in plain sight? Most people don't. Most people let the treasure slip away. But those who know what to look for, they're the ones who change their lives forever. And here's what you need to know if you want to spot the 2011 D worth millions. Look closely at the mint mark. On rare examples, it appears slightly misplaced, a whisper of doubling that makes the letter look thicker than normal. Study Lincoln's profile. In the valuable versions, the sharpness of the details, the jawline, the bow tie, reveals a strike unlike the mass-produced coins. And most importantly, check for errors, off-metal planchets, doubled dies, or unusual surface textures. These are the clues that turn copper into gold. But remember, not every odd penny is worth millions. That's the trap most people fall into. You need verification from a trusted grading service. Only then can you unlock its true potential. What if, as you sit here now, a $2.4 million penny is resting in your drawer, your wallet, your change jar? Collectors will spend their lives chasing this kind of rarity. Dealers will travel across the country just for the chance to see one in person. And for the lucky few who discover them, their lives are never the same again. This is more than just money. This is history. This is a reminder that treasures are still out there, waiting to be found. So tonight, when you empty your pockets, don't ignore that little brown coin. Don't dismiss it as worthless. Hold it up to the light. Study it. Search for the secrets it may carry. Because this exact penny, the 2011 D. Lincoln Memorial, could be the one. And if it is, then sitting in your hand isn't just spare change. It's a fortune. It's a miracle. It's worth over $1 million. This penny almost slipped through history unnoticed, but when it finally came to light, collectors couldn't believe their eyes. A single 1955 D mint mark wheat Lincoln penny, selling for as much as $2.5 million. Think about that for a moment. A coin you could easily mistake for spare change. A coin so ordinary, it could be lying in a dusty jar, forgotten for decades. Yet this very coin, under the right conditions, can transform into a life-changing fortune. The story begins in Denver, 1955. The mint was striking millions of Lincoln wheat pennies, rushing to keep up with America's booming economy. But in the chaos of the presses, something extraordinary happened. Something no one at the time could have imagined. A small number of coins left the mint with a hidden difference, a detail so tiny, so easy to overlook, that most people never saw it. And yet, that detail is exactly what made collectors lose their breath decades later. At first, no one paid attention. The coins circulated freely. They passed from cashier to customer, slipped into pockets, vanished into soda machines and bus fare boxes. Tens of millions of ordinary pennies, and a handful of treasures hiding in plain sight. But then, years later, whispers started to spread. A dealer spotted something unusual under magnification. A collector noticed a flaw in the design that didn't match the others, and the coin world began to buzz. Because this wasn't just any wheat penny. This was a 1955 D, with secrets buried in its metal. But what exactly makes this coin worth millions? The answer lies in a series of minting anomalies. Errors so rare that even experts at first doubted what they were seeing. Some of these pennies carry doubling in their features. Others reveal striking issues that set them apart from the rest of the 1955 Denver run. The tiniest shifts in engraving, the faintest misalignment in a die, details invisible to most. But to a trained collector, they are worth more than gold. And here's where it gets even stranger. Auction houses began to record shocking sales. One of these coins sold for tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, until finally, a specimen in immaculate condition made headlines by approaching the unimaginable $2.5 million. A penny so small, so ordinary in appearance, being bid on like a priceless treasure. The gavel came down, and the entire room gasped. Collectors knew they had just witnessed history. But here's the twist. Most people today have no idea this coin even exists. Every day, pennies are spent without a second glance. Coffee shops, grocery stores, gas stations. Ordinary Americans hand over coins that could, just possibly, be the key to financial freedom. One man's pocket change became $1 million miracle, and yours could too. Now imagine this. You open an old drawer. Inside is a small jar of wheat pennies your grandparents left behind. You sift through them absent-mindedly, and then your eyes catch a date, 1955. You flip it over, and there it is, the tiny D mint mark. Your hands start to shake, because suddenly you realize what you could be holding. Collectors have described the moment of discovery as electrifying. Some can barely speak when they realize the truth. Others rush immediately to experts, desperate to confirm what they've found. And when it is confirmed, the shock is overwhelming. But what happened next stunned the entire coin world. Because the price of these pennies kept climbing. Every new sale set a higher benchmark. Every discovery fueled the fire of demand. And every collector who missed out swore they would never let the chance slip again. Think of the emotional weight of a penny, something so ordinary, suddenly being guarded like a crown jewel. Dealers rushing to get their hands on it. Collectors whispering about it in hushed tones at coin shows. A quiet piece of copper, commanding the price of a mansion. And here's the most thrilling part. The difference between an ordinary 1955 penny worth just a cent and one worth millions can be a detail so small, most people never even notice. First, check the year. It must be 1955. Second, turn the coin to the obverse, the side with Lincoln's portrait. Look carefully at the mint mark. If there's a small D just beneath the date, you're in the right territory. But don't stop there. Examine the lettering. Collectors have found doubling on the inscriptions. Words like liberty and in God we trust sometimes appear with a shadow, as if struck twice. That doubling can be the difference between pocket change and a fortune. Next, study the condition. Coins in pristine, uncirculated state fetch the highest prices. Even a minor scratch can reduce the value dramatically. But if you find one with its original luster, sharp details, and clear doubling, you may be staring at a multi-million-dollar prize. Do not assume every 1955 penny is rare. The majority are ordinary. That's why so many people overlook them. But the rare ones, the ones with errors and doubling, are the hidden treasures. Collectors have compared the hunt for this coin to finding a diamond in a pile of pebbles. It's that rare, that elusive, that life-changing. And now, it's your turn. The next time you see a weak penny, don't dismiss it. Don't toss it into a jar without a second thought. Because inside that copper, there may be the single detail that transforms it into a fortune. The truth is, the 1955 wheat Lincoln penny is more than just a coin. It's a symbol of hidden wealth, of second chances, of the incredible possibility that the ordinary can become extraordinary.